All right, welcome back here to the Xfinity Sports Report, your Colorado high school connection. Brian Roth back with you. We'll get you back to those high school highlights in just a moment, but happy to bring in legendary basketball coach Dick Katte and author Mark Wolf as we'll talk about their new book, Overtime, Coach Katte on basketball and life. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. Yeah, Mark, let me start with you. Talk a little bit about the genesis of the idea.
I was sitting in my kitchen eating breakfast, and I was reading the Denver Post, and there was a story in it that Dick was going to retire. He just announced he was going to retire. And I looked across the table at my wife and I said, there's a book in this. And so I put together an outline and went to one of his games, and after the game handed him a folder with the outline in it, and I said, why don't you get a look at this? And it went from there.
Dick, what was your reaction?
To be honest, I would say that I was honored that somebody thought that there was a book, but it didn't sound like me, so I would say reluctantly I agreed to move forward.
Yeah. You know, Mark, you said you knew there was a book in there. Why? What in particular drew you to this?
Well, you can't be involved with basketball and high school sports in Colorado and not be aware of of the legacy that Dick has. All the championships, all the victories, but there was more than that, because we first met at a sportsmanship conference that CHSA put on back in the 90s. I was a sports columnist at the Rocky Mountain News, and I also had a son who was playing high school basketball. And just getting to know Coach Katte through that, and knowing the impact that he'd had, not just on the game, but on all of high school athletics in Colorado, and the sort of shadow that he cast over sportsmanship and through all kinds of leadership things. It just made me think that there was a story here that was very much worth telling.
You know, Dick, you said you were a little bit reluctant going into this, but did you warm up fairly quick? You know, I know you said you wanted to give back and you felt this would be a way to do that. Did you warm up to the idea quickly?
When you think about retirement, when my life has been, you know, as active and busy as it had been, I thought, well, this will give me a way to, can I say ease into retirement? And I've used this line a couple times. As a result, in the next 18 months, I was pleasantly busy rather than stressfully busy.
Yeah.
And that was kind of enjoyable. And working with Mark was just a real positive experience.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks out there know who Dick Katte is, but some of them might not be aware. Again, 52 years at Denver Christian, 48 years as the head coach, 8 state championships, 876 wins. Dick, you know, in the very first chapter written by you, Mark, it chronicles your last week as a high school coach after 52 years, gearing up for the state tournament. Last game you ever coach, you go out on top, you beat Lyman for a state championship. And you don't need an author to write that. You need something more divine than that.
And I think that's correct. And if I could have scripted it, I don't think I could have done it better. And I decided to announce it ahead of time because I will tell many people how old I am, but people were starting to, is this going to be the end for you? Nice way to go out. So I announced it a month ahead of time. And that's when he read the story and it just started to spill. He talks about the first chapter. The last chapter is the one that I may be the most proud of because it's random thoughts after 50 years. And it's all the things that I said to players, to media, to whatever in 50 years, just in little bullet things, you know. And I use even like Coach Wooden, who I admire, and he always said, be quick but don't hurry.
That's right.
That kind of thing are what I call random thoughts.
Yeah, and you have a bunch of them too as well. And you and I did a piece, I think it was about 6-7 years ago, our Coaching Legends feature. One of the things that always stood out to me, you always use teachable moments, forever moments, bloom where you're planted. You have a lot of them yourself.
And my last one that I used maybe the last 10 years was, I tried to convince every player to play hard, to do their best, to be a good teammate, and leave the rest to God.
Yeah.
And if they would buy into that, I knew we'd have a good team, because those 4 components would make a good team and a good person.
Yeah, and of course you had your Crusader trademarks as well. Mark, when you were outlining the book, how did you envision it going? Because I think it's really interesting. You're going to get a history on Coach Katte. You're going to get a history on Denver Christian. You're also going to get some real nuts and bolts on the sport of basketball. There's some faith in there. Kind of talk about how you were able to format that.
Well, there was so much. The resources were so rich when you're writing about Dick that we really had to slice and dice and make sure that we had a chapter that covered each one of the facets of his career and his life and faith. And the basketball part of it was, I think, probably the one we had the most fun with. In terms of putting it together and talking about it and sitting across from him at the kitchen table and going through this and going through that and drawing up plays and things. And I wanted to give a fully rounded picture of Coach and his career and his life, and that's what we hope we did.
An ordinary conversation sometimes went like this, relating an incident, and I would hear, that's got to go in the book. And so that would be my assignment, but by the next time we might have something,
Sure.
He would edit, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 2 pieces in there that I think when I use the word reluctantly, the 2 encounters I had with threatening diseases are each a chapter in the book, and they really, I think, give a good perspective of where you are in life. And all of a sudden, you aren't there, and it's a good reminder that things aren't always in our hands.
Yeah. Dick, you talk about the health scares, 1984, a brain aneurysm, 1993, cancer. Talk a little bit about how those 2 events shaped you, not only as a coach, but a teacher.
As I was having good success in the 60s, 70s in my coaching career, I think maybe I was a little high on myself, and maybe this was a reminder that said, remember what you're in this for. It's for young people, it's not for you. And God the aneurysm was a really death note, because to my family, I was gone.
Yeah.
And to recover from that. And then 9 years later, the cancer came. And again, it was just, okay, and that's why I always give that there are things that I can't control. I want my players to know that too. A coach can't control the referee, so why complain about them? You should always coach for what you can control. Both of those incidents helped me to realize some things are out of your control.
Yeah, you talked about the referees, of course, you being a college football official yourself, but I thought it was very funny. You say you can remember all your technicals, or at least you know that you only had 7, you believe. 7 technical fouls in 48 years. That's impressive. And one of them because you had the scorebook wrong, right?
Yeah. And one of them I can remember I definitely earned.
Definitely remember that one. You got me money's worth.
But I think being both, if I could script it, I think every official should have been a coach somewhere, and every coach should know what it's like to put stripes on.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I think everybody knows that, but I don't think it really resonates with fans until they are put in that position as well. Hey, you mentioned some basketball coaches now have started to read the book a little bit. This is a great resource for them. And again, the cool thing about this, there's a lot of X's and O's in this book too.
And again, give Mark credit. Even the titles to all the chapters that he gave, I think, are just unique. But what we did is chronologically followed a career, and then right in the middle, as Mark would say, we've got to put some X's and O's, because that's what coaches always want. And it's true.
Yeah.
If I go and talk at a clinic or whatever, then they'll always ask, will you give us can you do this for us? Instead of just wanting to know the Crusader trademarks or those random thoughts, they want some X's and O's.
All right, final thoughts before we let you guys go. Mark, give me 1 or 2 things that you learned that you really got from writing this book with Coach Katte?
Well, all the players that I talked to who played for him told me about his exacting attention to detail. And having Coach Katte edit the words that I wrote, I understand now what it's like to play for him. So that was a lot. And just being around and revisiting all of the highs and the lows that made up this life in basketball was very rewarding.
Yeah, those teachable moments in defeat, as you talk about, Dick. Did you learn anything maybe about yourself?
Very much so. You know, and I think then that some of my philosophy or principles are formed that way. I think a loss will teach more than a win if you don't lose too often, because then pretty soon you accept it. But when and a coach really owes it to use those moments to help young people. You know, so if I'm going and lose the first game in a state tournament, I can't just let them pack their bags and go home. We have to say, and why did that happen? Life's going to be full with that. And those are what I would call teachable moments for young people.
All right, Mark, where can people buy the book? Where can they get this?
Wherever books are sold. Obviously, it's on Amazon, and we're in Tattered Cover and Barnes & Noble and some of the independent bookstores in town. It's easy to find.
Yeah. Great job, Mark. Thank you so much.
Go online and go www.dickkatte.com.
DickKatte.com as well. All right. Great job. Of course, Mark, a longtime writer at the Rocky Mountain News, also a basketball coach in his own right, which I know helped out with the book as well. And, of course, legendary coach Dick Katte. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's a fantastic book.
Thank you very much. I'm pleasantly happy with the book.
As you should be. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll get you more basketball highlights. After all, why not? That's a perfect segue into the rest of the show. Stay with us here on XSR.